Hi everyone, Michael here. I would like to welcome you to the webinar. Today we'll be talking about how to hire PHP developers. Just to make sure, can you guys hear me here on Zoom? You could actually type a message on the right. So let's look in the chat window if you can type anything. Can you guys hear me well? If yes, then write yes, probably. Okay. Okay, seems like you can hear me, at least 1-2 person. Okay, very cool. Cool. So before we jump straight to the topic, I would like to introduce myself. You may already know if you've joined the previous webinars that I'm from the group of technical leaders, CTOs who are keen to share their knowledge, and especially if I look at the problem that we solve or try to solve, the thing that I've seen in the past is on one hand, it's really easy for technical leaders to interview developers. It's easy because that's their daily job, right? So you can, as a CTO, for example, as I used to be a CTO, it's really easy to spot a junior developer, a senior developer. You could immediately see if the person knows what he or she is talking about. But then, as I talk to recruiters, I notice how difficult it is for them to recruit developers, to interview developers, to assess them, because in general they lack the technical understanding. And I know people who cannot pronounce the word hackathon. They say hackathon or whatever, and this is not how you impress developers. So that was the original idea behind GeekRecruiter. Like, how could we create a training program or an online academy that actually teaches some of these basics, basic technologies, basic understanding recruiters, especially technical recruiters. So that's how we started. I'm super excited to see you guys jumping on the webinar today to learn about how to hire PHP developers, because this is something we would like to share. How to source, how to interview them, how to attract them eventually. And I'm so grateful for the questions that you guys enter when you register for the webinar. I encourage you to keep doing so, because it gives me some insights into what you are interested in, what you would like me to talk about during a webinar like this one. And previously, we talked about, what was it, C#? It was about C#, and beforehand it was about Java. So we go technology by technology, and we look at the developer profiles on LinkedIn. We talk about how to attract them, what technologies are just trending, what technologies are cool and hyped, because this is what developers want to see, want to work with. This is what attracts them. I think you guys, if you're technical recruiters, which I suppose you are, because otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this, right? So if you're a technical recruiter, where you don't want to be is actually on the just let me introduce it. Okay, so the concept I think about is based on two extremes. So on one extreme, usually there are recruiters who are sort of administrative workers, right? Like, there is a CV, you process it, you enter it to some system, you maybe screen it, maybe not, and pass it to someone else. So this is the mostly admin work, right? And this is what I think sooner or later will be replaced by automated systems. That's actually already happening, maybe not in a huge scale, but you have systems evaluating and matching the workers, the developers, with companies. Where I see much higher value, and I would like you guys to upskill to the level, is where you become a full end-to-end partner to. So I'll write BIS partner, where you become a full end-to-end partner to hiring managers, to a CTO, like I used to be, right? I was waiting for some recruiter who would actually understand how to build an engineering team, how to compose the team. Say, if it is difficult to get 5 C# developers, maybe we can build the applications in different platforms. on different technologies. And this is something I think you guys can get to at some point with proper training. You can upskill yourself to a level where you become a full end-to-end business partner to IT directors, to CTOs, to business managers eventually, right? You don't want to be the admin assistant going through LinkedIn profiles and screening, and this is something that can be easily automated sooner or later. Okay, if not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe in half year, but certainly the future is not here. The future is in being a business partner to CTOs. So you need to be able to talk to CTOs. You need to be able to interview them, to ask what kind of goals do they have, what do they want to achieve, how to compose the team, how to say involve remote workers, how to build a team, maybe in a different location, how to manage them. And this is something we focus on at GeekRecruiter. So the basic training we create today is maybe looking at the how to hire PHP developers is maybe somewhere here, where we talk about, hey, where do you find these developers? How do you approach them? But the value, much more value, you would create here on the scale. Okay. So eventually, after training like the one inside the GeekRecruiter Academy, I believe you will be much more confident, because it's all about confidence at the end of the day. Well, it's also all about money, but before you get to the point where you hire lots of developers, you need to be a confident recruiter, and the confidence can be achieved either through proper education or through experience. Ideally, if you can combine both. So at GeekRecruiter, we try to get as close to on-the-job training as we can. We also organize let's say work groups. We call it work groups for teams, where we give them feedback, and that's as close as it could get to on-the-job training, especially when we train remote recruiters. So that's the foundation I would like to lay down first, and now let's jump on the PHP training. So how to hire PHP developers. Well, first, let's talk about PHP as a language, and then about frameworks. Okay, so maybe I'll share with you the technology map which we have here. So let's just wait a second. Technology map. I need to find it. It was somewhere here. Technology map. Okay, so here it is. Let me now share the screen so you guys can see it. So here's the technology map. And you could see here PHP as a language, right? So PHP is a language, and then around PHP, you can see different frameworks. So you could see a framework such as Laravel, or Symfony, or what is it, Zend? Okay, Zend, or what else? YE. Oh well, yeah, I remember YE from the good old days, 10 years ago, or actually even more. Netty. Even 10 years ago, no one wanted to work with YE. All right, so now what is important is to realize what is the difference between a framework and a language. And by now, you guys, especially those of you who have joined the previous webinars, you know that, for example, JavaScript is a language, and then there are frameworks such as React or Ember or Angular around, right? Around on the technology map, but built on or using the language. Same with Ruby, right? Ruby is a language, and Ruby on Rails is a framework. Same with, I don't know, C#. We have C# as a language, and then you have .NET Framework and .NET Core and Xamarin and Blazor as frameworks. So same things happens with PHP, where you have PHP as a language. This is actually the language that started as a web development language. So back in the good old days, where web was, a set of static pages, HTML pages, someone came with the idea like hey, let's create a language that would that would process these templates and generate them dynamically. So that's why PHP was a hypertext preprocessor. That's pretty much what the acronym stands for. So looking at PHP, it serves the purpose very well. So you can build websites, you can build backend and front-end websites with PHP. It's not a front-end language, so JavaScript could be used on the front-end side, on the client side. By the client I mean a web browser. With PHP, it could only be run on the backend. But what is important to realize is that you build a website. So it's not just the server logic, but it also generates the templates. So PHP has some templating systems that generate the HTML for the developers. So looking at some of these frameworks, I'll highlight those that are most booming recently. So it's Laravel, and it's also Symfony. If you look at, for example, Zend or YE, well, Zend is a great framework. It's not really trending. There is no huge hype around it because it's rather an old framework. It could be 10 years old or so. Same with YE. With YE, I would say it's really wow. Does it look like an arrow? Or maybe you cannot see it. I need to stop sharing my screen. So here I drew an arrow down with YE. Well, the popularity decreases over time. With Zend, the popularity also decreases, but not as heavily as with YE. When you say someone like, "Hey, we have a project that is built on YE," well, good luck convincing the developer to jump on such a project. With Zend is I would say the sentiment is neutral, because Zend is a great high quality framework, but it's already aged. So I would say compensates for the fact that it's a high quality framework. With Laravel, for example, you could see how the framework gains traction. I have here a screenshot. Let me share it. How can I share it with you? I need to share screen again, but different one, this one. So here you guys could see how Laravel's popularity increases since 2015-16. This is a chart from Google Trends where you could see that Laravel's popularity increases over time, while, for example, CodeIgniter or Zend or even PHP, not even thinking about why the popularity of other decreases. So that's quite interesting, right? So Laravel certainly gets a lot of traction recently. If you have a developer, and now it comes back to the question how to attract a developer. Well, when you say, hey, we have a project, you can work with Laravel or Symfony, that's a great sign. It's like Symfony, it's Symfony, okay, Symfony. So it's a great sign if you mention that we have a project either in Symfony or in Laravel. Now, there is one interesting framework called Netty. It's actually very popular in a region of Central Europe, in Czech Republic, where it was founded, also in Slovakia. It's quite popular. So I'll draw here especially Caesar, like Czech Republic, like everyone from the PHP community knows Netty, they love it. It has really strong support. It's not as strong outside of the Central Europe region. All right, so that's with Netty. Now, looking at some other frameworks like Cake PHP or I don't know, CodeIgniter. I would not talk about these frameworks now because we have limited time. We cover lots of these frameworks inside the Geek User Academy. So if you would like to know more about these, then I strongly recommend you guys dive deeper. Now, again, how do you attract developers? Well, you attract them if you know what you talk about, and you will know what you talk about if you go through these frameworks, if you study what they are about. How can you or what can you actually ask developers if someone says, hey, I worked with CodeIgniter, like what can you ask as a follow-up question? This immediately raises the bar. It raises yourself in their eyes eventually. For now, I will focus only on Laravel and Symfony, great frameworks with that everyone who works with PHP actually should know about. Okay, here is it. So I usually also mention what the particular language can be used for. And here I have a matrix that I usually draw. So it's like backend, front end, and then could be used for iOS, could be used to build Android apps, could be used for data, could be used for what else? For example, IoT. Okay, could be used for machine learning, artificial intelligence. And now let's cross or tick some boxes. So can it be used for data processing? No, it cannot be used for data processing. It works seamlessly with SQL language, right? You can from PHP language connect either to relational database such as MySQL or non-relational database such as MongoDB, but you cannot really query data just with a pure language PHP. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't work. With IoT, well, no, you could, but it's not used on embedded systems. PHP is used mostly to build web applications. So here I indicate it this way. So say here I write web, here I write mobile apps, and here the rest. Okay, so this is the matrix I usually draw for every programming language, because it helps you as a recruiter understand what the particular technology is about, right, and where it could be used. So looking at front end, well, PHP is not used on front end. You can again flawlessly combine it with JavaScript. So if you look at the full stack, then you have PHP on the backend side and JavaScript on the front end side. Okay, and then you can you also build iOS and Android applications? No, you cannot. You cannot really use PHP for Android nor for iOS applications. It's also not used for machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so on. So this is pretty much what PHP could be used for. Let me also indicate it maybe here. PHP. So if you guys don't know, then maybe you want to remember that PHP is only good for the backend side of the web development, and you cannot really use it for iOS, nor for Android, nor for data, nor IoT, no machine learning, anything like that. Okay, does it make sense? Cool. All right, so with that, we covered another topic I wanted to go through. What else? Well, we have a long agenda. I have a set of points that we could go through. For example, in one of our courses that focuses on PHP, we highlight developers who work with the technology. So he or she introduces himself or herself, walks us through some of the technologies they use on a daily basis, and that's very helpful if you guys haven't ever worked with PHP. And I actually have programmed with PHP for quite some time, so it's relatively easy for me to interview developers, and I would like to share some of these insights to you, although we cannot really go through everything during this webinar. All right, we also look at LinkedIn profiles, which is again helpful, and we can demonstrate the standard career path of a developer. When I think, what is the standard career path? Like usually developers start with some tests, right? They enter their career as testers, and then they sorry, there are some additional questions here in the chat window, so I'll respond to these later. Okay, cool. So they are testers, right? And then they continue their journey through backend development, maybe full stack development. Well, think about PHP again as a backend language. So just a sec. So if you look at the stack, say a full stack, okay, where here you have some backend systems, and you have some front-end system. They somehow communicate, and the front-end could be a screen the user sees, and by user I mean could be someone like you. You go to a website, www.geekcruiser.com, and you see something, right? So the something is generated by the backend PHP language. It generates HTML, and that's what you see here. So this could be the screen that you could see. I'll draw a screen. That's the website, right? And this backend communicates with different other systems through APIs. API. It could connect to database, and that's what PHP is good for, right? You can have a system that connects to, I don't know, Google Maps, or it could connect to different systems through API, and then eventually pulls data or saves data, one way or the other, saves or pulls or queries data from the database, and then sends the HTML code to the end user. Okay, so just to give you context, what PHP is actually really good for. Now I'm also looking at a few questions here. So thanks again to those of you who have sent me a question beforehand. Now the question is, some of the technical questions like Laravel or Symfony. We talked about this just a while ago. So what is cooler? Is cooler Symfony or Laravel? Well, it's an interesting question. Well, based on data, I would say Laravel is more hyped. Laravel is growing significantly in the last 2, 3, 4 years. With Symfony, well, Symfony is very popular, and lots of developers like Symfony because quite a lot of really hardcore stuff comes from Symfony. And by hardcore stuff, I mean some libraries. Because again, if you look at PHP is a language, right? But PHP is or includes lots of libraries in their ecosystem. And by library, I mean something that you can use you as a developer. I mean, you as a developer could use if you were a developer, but you are not a developer, right? You are a recruiter. That's why you are at this webinar. What I wanted to mention is that lots of libraries come from those developers who are core developers at Symfony, and that's that's something that sets the bar high. So Symfony has lots of positive vibe around. But looking at data, Laravel grows much faster, as you could see on the screen I shared a while ago. Okay, let's look at some other question. How can we attract PHP developers? Well, you attract them. If you give them a stack where they could shine, and by a stack I mean here could be PHP. Now the question is, what is the front end, right? Like first, I would be thinking, is there a templating language? Is there a templating system used? If yes, what is the templating system? For example, Netty has their own templating system, but these days also I noticed an interesting trend where on front end, even PHP developers like to use React. So essentially and eventually with PHP, how could I demonstrate this? All right, I'll try it this way. So normally you have PHP, and here you have templating engine, right? And you have the backend system. Okay, but what I noticed just recently is an interesting trend where developers for the front end like to use React. So what they do actually, they scrape this templating part. By templating part I mean part of the backend that generates the templates, and by template I mean something that renders to the end user on the website in a browser, and instead they use React. Or it could be some other JavaScript, just JavaScript. It could also be Vue, JavaScript. It could be Angular. Just some of these trending systems. Okay, and with that, the backend just becomes like an API. An API. So JavaScript connects to the backend through this API. So in other words, the PHP world decouples a bit, where previously it used to be one system, like, hey, I'm a PHP developer and I will build a website. Everything will be in PHP and just HTML, right? Generate HTML. But now what we could see is the developers like to work with JavaScript, React, Angular, because it's cool. So they decouple part of the functionality. They scrape the part that is a little cumbersome in PHP, and then they only keep the backend as an API. So the React or Angular here connects through an API to the backend system, pulls data, and displays on the front end, which makes it much more faster, much more dynamic. So when again you ask me how to attract developers, I would say, PHP developers, this would be one of the ways. If you could articulate that they don't need to use all the templates that, for example, Zend or YE, oh my god, or even Laravel Symfony offers, but they can connect it with JavaScript frameworks. They can use still JavaScript, Angular, React on the front end, and then build only PHP APIs on the backend side. Well, I think this could be one of great selling points eventually. Okay. Now let me go through the list of the questions again. Where to find suitable candidates? Well, this is a good question. In regards to PHP, for example, there are Slack communities that attract PHP developers, and I already wrote a blog post about this. Let me just go to the website geekrecruiter.com/blog, because in one of the articles I mentioned how to use or what kind of communities to use on Slack. And here, all right, I will share this screen with you again. So bear with me. I click share here. So here you can see on the website, one of my friends, a CTO at Entrido, talks about a group PHP. It's actually focused on a local Czech market, but it's a great community. You can go to the Slack channel, and here, can I actually make this bigger? Open in a new tab. And here you could see what it looks like. So if you, as a recruiter, join the Slack community, there is a channel called Jobs, and you can send a message to developers. But then again, you shouldn't send a long, elaborate, because like who likes to read a long text, right? So focus on what really matters to PHP developers. Think about what attracts them. It's all about PHP. That's pretty much obvious, right? You should also mention the framework required. Is it Zend? Is it Symfony? Is it Laravel? Is it Cake PHP? CodeIgniter? Which one is the project already using? And then mention, for example, what is used on front end. So do you build just the backend API, or do you build a full system in PHP? If backend API only, then what is on front end? Can the developer work with or work on the front end system also? So are you looking for a full stack developer? Are you looking for someone who works with backend as a hold a sec, I'll draw it so it's actually easier maybe to understand. So look, PHP, not PHP, PHP on the backend, and then can the developer also use say Angular on front end? If you can present an opportunity. Oh, sorry, I need to close the screen shared window. So if you can present an opportunity like this, like, hey, we are looking for a PHP developer who will work on backend, and he or she will also work on the Angular on front end. So in other words, you are looking for a full stack developer. Or you zoom in and you say, hey, we are looking for the PHP developer only. He will only work on PHP APIs, and that's it. We are not looking for anyone else. But then that's a different story, okay? So you need to also ask the hiring manager, who are you actually looking for? Are you looking for a PHP developer who will only work on the backend side? Or are you looking also for a full stack developer who will work on the front end side? And that's a completely different story, okay? Okay, so maybe we have time for one more question. How to motivate the candidates to change their already good job as a PHP developer? Well, this is a great question. Here, I would say you need to motivate them with either with an attractive company and a team, and here, I'll write it this way. First, company plus team. Second, it's a tech stack. Because today, who wants to work with legacy technology, right? So again, it comes back to knowing what is trending and what's not. Why and Zend not so cool. It's not such a cool stack. If you think about PHP on the backend side and say Angular on front end, that's a cool stack. Okay, so think about cool stack. Well, three, obviously compensation. And I would also mention, well, if the recruiter, actually you knows what he or she or you are talking about, then that could actually change the developer's mind pretty significantly from my experience. And I've seen it firsthand when I try to hire developers to join either my company, or when I hire developers for our hiring partners. Then developers know that I know what I'm talking about, and that helps tremendously, because I can talk about it from the left, from the right. I can show them what are the pros and cons of each option, and that could convince them to change their already good job, because I show them like, hey, you are here today, you haven't learned much in the last 3 months, but this opportunity can get you from where you are today to where you could be in 6 months from now. And this is what developers actually like to hear, because I draw them where they can get, say, with the new technology stack, how it could upskill them, how it can increase their market value. Compensation, obviously, company and the team, two different things. I think you need to split these two, because the company, you cannot just talk about some generic things like, hey, this is I don't know, some PR statement that just doesn't make sense at all. I still like to talk about some vision of the co-founders, but what is more important for the developers, from my experience, is actually the team. The team they will be working with on a daily basis. This is really important, because they will come to work with a particular team. The people who sit right next to them on a daily basis. Well, that's what matters, I would say, much more than a company that was established 30 years ago and has customers worldwide, and has 10,000 developers. Whatever. It just doesn't make any difference. But what makes a difference is the team. It could be the top 10 or 10 people who will be most in touch with the developer. Those people make difference, and with those people, I like to talk whenever I hire someone for a company. All right, so that's it. We've covered some of the questions you guys had. One question was not relevant, so I skipped that one. But otherwise, I'm really glad you guys keep asking questions when you fill the registration form, because that gives me some insight into where to go with this webinar. So thanks a lot for that again, and I hope this was helpful for you. It helps you to at least see where we could go with the training, because we are just scraping the surface here. I just introduced what PHP is used for, what is training, how to attract developers, but this is just the beginning. This is just, I would say, the beginning of your journey, because we could go much further, and we go much further inside the academy, where we talk about how to write a good CV, how to rewrite a job description, and so on. I mean, not a CV, but a JD, a job description. How to write on social media, how to small talk with PHP developers. That's much more important than I don't know, than post nice pictures on LinkedIn. All right, so that's it for today. I will organize a next webinar next week, again on Wednesday. So I hope you guys will be able to join me, because we'll be talking about, oh well, and now I forgot the topic, but certainly it's on website geekrecruiter.com/events. So go there to check it out. And I wish you a wonderful and successful week. Have a wonderful day, everyone.